And there it is, ladies and gents. We now have a conclusive break above Bitcoin's previous all-time high of about $112,000 today. We have managed to set a high at about 114K, which is absolutely fantastic. And it continues to prove that we are breaking out of this pennant that we were watching on this YouTube channel. So those of you that are subscribed for a while, you're going to know that we were talking about this pennant for a little bit. It lasted over a month, by the way. If we actually measure it from, when we entered this range to when we really left this range, this was nearly 2 months here that we spent in this consolidation range, and we have now concluded this range also by back testing it on the smaller time frames here and now lifting off. It's also, of course, only happening with, I believe, the blessing of of the S&P 500, which has also set a new all-time high. In fact, as we speak, as we're recording right now, the trading session is not over. There's still about an hour left at the time of recording. And the S&P 500 has managed to, it stumbled a little bit from the Trump-Elon drama. Maybe it was something else, I don't know. But it's now pretty much fully recovered, and the game is back on, ladies and gents. Smash up the likes if you are pumped up for this market like I am. And while you are down there, check out the phenomenal links to the channel sponsors Bybit and 𝗙𝗟𝗟𝗓. These guys are running two of the best platforms in the game. They're very, very similar in terms of form functionality. What's cool about 𝗙𝗟𝗟𝗓 is that you get exclusive chart updates from the team, which is really, really cool. We're monitoring stuff. We're telling you about it. You can find those right here. And Bybit, obviously remains the best in the game as far as tech and offerings. You can even trade stocks now through Bybit, which is really, really cool. So again, always check them out, only if you're not from a restricted region. But bringing it back to the market here, obviously S&P 500 giving this market the blessing that it's using today, and Bitcoin has managed to, with that blessing, rise up and now get, I think, quite a clear breakout, a blue sky breakout. This is price territory that we've never been in before, and this makes it really, really exciting. Now, in terms of kind of, trying to put a foot forward of like where this might go, one of the more reliable kind of tools in my experience is going to be, kind of measuring the flagpole that took us here. So, if this is the flagpole and this is the flag, then, what we can go ahead and do is just extrapolate this to give ourselves a target from the bottom of where we started this move, okay? This is typically how it's drawn. There's a lot of different ways to do this. This is how I like to do it. And this puts us quite confidently in the $130,000 to $140,000 price range. I think this price range makes complete sense because we have now been in a continuation pattern. We've been in a pause of trend now, more or less, let's say from the point that we hit this all-time high up until this breakout point. This was 200 days, okay? So that's 6.5 months where Bitcoin, it like I said, it moved, right? Like we did see movements during this time period. It dropped by 17% here and by 32% to the low if we measure it from this all-time high. So we definitely had stuff going on during this period of time. It wasn't the same as, our previous continuation pattern here. Now, if you're wondering what I mean by continuation pattern, that's basically the trend moves. So the trend is moving. This is the part that I would call the trend, and then the continuation pattern is when you go sideways for a little bit. This is the trend that this is the pattern that continues your trend, okay? So I call them continuation patterns. You can call them consolidation events. There's lots and lots of different names, but the previous consolidation range that we had, continuation pattern that we had, was, not so dramatic. I mean, back then it felt kind of real, especially, if you measure them, you're still, we still got a 32% drop. So that's obviously quite large from, 73,000 down to 49,000. Obviously, a lot of people had given up and sold all of their Bitcoin because they're very, very silly, in this price range. And we, so in that sense, I mean, look, this was more of a flat range than the one that we've just come out of, but it's still a range. It's still a big range. It's still moved in similar percentage drops, and it's still stuck around for a similar amount of time, right? From the point that we got the breakout to the point that we, from the point that we started to the point we got the breakout, that was also roughly 200 days. So as far as time frames go, we're moving really, really well. And I think that's incredibly important because if you're seeing something similar, and by the way, we did it again over here, right? We've covered this so much on this YouTube channel. Those of you that are subscribed, you're going to be so familiar with this analysis now, where Bitcoin did the exact same thing over here inside of roughly a, kind of 25-30% range. It lasted roughly, 200 days once again. Very, very similar time frames. We've done the same thing now. And this is my point ultimately, is that this market has, it's been very frustrating. It's been very hard for a lot of people to read and understand. But the reality is that it's actually been really simple. It's been really straightforward what's going on and why it's happening. The only catch is that you wouldn't get it if you, analyze with a gambling style of mentality, or if you're just, I don't know, you might be listening to the wrong people, you might be in the wrong Discord, Telegram, Twitter following, whatever. Like, things just might not be, the right stuff that you need to consume. But you're here now, so that's fine. That mistake is gone forever. And what's really, really important to understand about this chart is if we just really dumb it down, keep it super, super simple, really all that's happened, look at this, by the way, I had this fractal drawn out, and we did exactly what I said. Literally the only difference is it's happening about 5 days later than when I said we would do it. But this is exactly what I said would happen. But if we just kind of, analyze the market, to kind of understand, what these chart patterns are telling us, it's been an incredibly simple, straightforward pattern of up and then sideways, up and then slightly down, up and then, whatever the fuck this was, but, still more or less, up and sideways, right? And now we're continuing that next up, move right here. So, that's really, really cool because it's a very digestible chart pattern for us to understand, especially if we just discount this price action, by the way, which is totally doable. This is mostly then just, a sideways range with a fake out in between, which completely makes sense for Bitcoin. We did it over here as well. We do it a lot, where we fake out, lower than we need to. It's super, super common that it happens with Bitcoin. So we did it again over here. And the reason that I'm framing all of this way for you guys is because it then makes it very easy to digest that, we've done the same stuff. We've consolidated for the same amount of time. We've had similar amounts of pullbacks in terms of percent. We've just done it. We've checked the same boxes that we've checked every time that we got a big pump before inside of this market cycle. And it's happening again. And it's happening within the context of the S&P 500 moving up. And we've got Trump calling for a 300 basis points drop in interest rates, which is absolutely phenomenal, totally achievable and doable in my opinion. I know that it sounds crazy. I know that it sounds like a really big drop. But we had a big drop back in 2020 again. We can totally have another big drop right now. It's just the Fed being very, very stubborn. Obviously, that's a different discussion that I don't want to spend too much of your time on this video. But my point is that we've got things ready to go. I think it's no surprise that markets are pointing up right now. Nothing has actually happened, right? We haven't taken off. We haven't done anything jaw-dropping yet. But clearly, I think the market knows that it's coming, and I think that's why we're seeing these breakouts happening the way that they're happening. And like I said, just the positioning, the timing of this happening after the consolidation event, after the amount of time that we've spent, it makes these kind of targets in the mid 100 to 200k range, quite plausible for me to start entertaining. Right? The reason I can start entertaining these ideas now is because if you have consolidated for a very long period of time, you're probably going to have a much easier time moving up afterwards because, anybody that wanted to sell their Bitcoin, they really had ample opportunity to do that. If they wanted to sell it at the bottom, they could have done it here. If they wanted to sell it at the top, they could have done it here during these consolidation events, especially during this one here. I think a lot of people that wanted to sell their Bitcoin were able to do it here. And now you don't really have that many people interested in selling Bitcoin. Bitcoin's just set a brand new all-time high. It's been a long time consolidating. The trend is very, very clear. And honestly, a lot of the people that can sell Bitcoin at, premature times, they don't have Bitcoin anymore. They've already done it, okay? So the only people left holding Bitcoin now for the most part are people that, have bought it with a view to be very, very patient with it, with a view to be very sober with their approach with Bitcoin so that they're not expecting, silly miracles, and instead they're keeping themselves grounded, expecting the right things to happen. And obviously, that approach does get rewarded very, very well in these markets because, now you're just being very sensible and you're expecting reasonable things to happen, and reasonable things do end up happening, right? By reasonable, I mean, realistic things that, events that you can predict that, things similar to what have happened in the past. Because obviously a lot of what we're doing in trading is we're looking for where history is rhyming. So those kind of people are obviously very well positioned right now, and I don't think that there's many of those people that want to sell at these kind of price levels right now that we're getting a blue sky breakout. It's been a really, really long time. S&P is looking really good. It's just, this is the first time, bear in mind, that the S&P 500 has set a new all-time high in a long time, right? We set this all-time high back here in February of 2025, and, obviously that was roughly when Bitcoin was also popping off and doing quite well, right? Like, this is January. Obviously, February was a little bit worse for Bitcoin, but, similar times that Bitcoin was doing well, and then Bitcoin did set a new all-time high, and Bitcoin did continue to do really, really well. The S&P 500, it took a little bit longer to kind of come around, around. But now it's here, and it's going really, really strong, right? So to me, that means that we're firing on all cylinders, and I don't have a reason in particular to believe whatsoever that this is going to stop or that this has a short time horizon on it. So I definitely think that really opens the kind of path for us to continue to move to better and higher price levels, and especially to do it quickly, right? I don't think that this is something that needs to happen slowly at this stage. We've done a lot of slow stuff. We've done a lot of consolidation. Now the markets are moving, and these two daily candles really tell you that story quite well, right? I mean, if we take a look at what these daily candles are doing, this one, opens at 108, closes at 111, so that's a 2.5% candle, which is great. And so far, this candle is not closed. We've got another 4 hours left, but we're already up by about 2%, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. Let's take a look at this with the fear and greed index. This should update, put us in extreme greed. No, we're not even in extreme greed yet. We're only at 71. We had higher readings than this back in May, I think it was. Yeah, when we hit this price level, and certainly back here. So we're doing very well in terms of a lot of key metrics resetting. As far as dominance goes, dominance has, it's been sliding down a little bit. We covered this in yesterday's live stream. Once again, shout out to those of you that are subscribed and hitting those likes up on these videos. You will get a lot of updates on that. And by the way, I do want to tell you a little bit about our exclusive, one-to-one offer. This is a really, really valuable offer. Everybody that's ever come in has paid off their investment super quick after joining because of how powerful the package that we've put together for you guys is. We've never had anybody do badly when they entered this program so far. It is going to happen. Obviously, someone's going to fuck this up, but we're selective with who we take on. It's very serious. It's expensive. It's not something that is cheap to get into, but if you're serious about what you're doing and these kind of things sound interesting to you, then definitely reach out and a member of the team will give you that information there. But Bitcoin's dominance, it has dropped down by a little bit. It's found a little bit of stability today. Clearly as Bitcoin hits its blue sky breakout, altcoins are not showing as much strength as they did even just yesterday, but I think that's totally fine. I don't think that that's concerning at all. For me, the way I see it, this is still there's still potential for altcoins to see a lower Bitcoin dominance and basically for altcoins to move up. But especially if we're going to start moving quite aggressively for Bitcoin now, I think that, we're probably in a position where dominance might start picking back up. It's not going to take much to, sweep these highs for Bitcoin dominance. And, I think that it can definitely happen as well if Bitcoin starts dropping. And so on that note, if I'm wrong and if Bitcoin actually continues to, if it actually reverses and starts dropping down, now we have, a really nice kind of bit of headroom from this, kind of parallel channel. We've now managed to rise up by about 5.5% above this channel, which means that if we do come back down, the chance of getting a back test that is successful, I think, is actually a little bit higher now. I would really like to see, I don't think this is going to happen soon, but it would be really nice to see Bitcoin coming back down to this level for a support retest. Previously, bear in mind, it was resistance over here, it was resistance over here, it was resistance over here, and it was resistance right before we popped. And even after we popped, it was a lackluster pop. It didn't really move in a super significant way. That now, I think is a really, really good opportunity now for Bitcoin to kind of come back down and back test this level and capture some support and then take it higher. And, I think there's a ton of indicators that are probably starting to point in that direction right now. If you take a look at this on the 4-hour 𝐒𝐄𝐕𝐄𝐗 cloud, for example, we should be seeing some support around this range. Let's see. Oh, that's the wrong indicator. 4-hour 𝐒𝐄𝐕𝐄𝐗 right in the exact same place that we were expecting right there. Obviously, we're going to have some momentum behind the market right now. There's the daily EMA ribbon also lining up perfectly with this downward sloping resistance channel here. So, just a ton of stuff kind of going in Bitcoin's favor right now. If it does end up dropping, it would be a really, really good retest. It would obviously scare the market a little bit because it's like, well, this is the first, real breakout we've had in a very, very long time. And it will be very disheartening for a lot of traders if it does end up coming back down. So I think that would really, be a great opportunity for bears to temporarily seize control of the market and then, hand it back to the bulls. And also, it just proves to bulls that, we're defending price levels. If it proves to bulls that we're defending price levels, that makes it more likely for different bulls to click buy in the future because they understand that pullbacks are shallow. So, I think that's another thing that I'd be interested in watching. Obviously, our best support remains a little bit lower, down in the mid mid-90s. Obviously, we're going to be seeing, you know, the what's it called, point of control for the fixed range volume profile, or the VPVR, is also going to be floating around these kind of price levels. So, you know, that's something that continues to kind of hold strong for the market. But like I said before, if we do end up dropping down that low, you know, below 100K, that's really not going to be a good look, in my opinion. You know, that's going to make this another kind of, you know, confirmed failed breakout, which would, you know, slow us down a little bit. But like I said, I don't really think we're in that situation right now. You know, I think that the S&P 500 is really paving the way for crypto right now. I don't think that the S&P 500 is in trouble from a political standpoint, from a technical analysis standpoint. It just looks like things are looking good. We've known that this was going to happen for a long time. We were even calling for this massive retest to the same exact level that the S&P 500 dropped down to. So none of this stuff has been taking us by surprise, especially since Trump took office, or even since he won the election. I think a lot of this stuff has been, you know, pretty predictable. You know, for people that are paying attention, and that's again exactly, you know, what we aim to put out on this YouTube channel, and what we're also, you know, putting out on 𝗙𝗟𝗟𝗍𝒑 right here with those exclusive chart updates. You know, this is stuff that you get for free when you sign up to 𝗙𝗟𝗟𝗍𝒑 using this link. You know, and again, great exchange, like I said, 1-to-1 reserves being proven. You know, great liquidity. It's just a platform that, you know, you shouldn't have problems with. And like I said, really interesting that we get to, you know, put interesting updates out there. So like I said, check that out if you are interested. Those links are there for you if you're not from a restricted region. But with that, you know, not a whole lot else to say. I think, you know, the altcoin market is just waiting. Here's Ethereum against Bitcoin. It's just sitting at resistance right now, clearly trying to get close to break that resistance, but it hasn't quite done that yet. As far as, you know, some of the other altcoins that we love here, you know, there's Solana, but it's not really doing anything. XRP, you know, has moved up incredibly well. You know, and it's really pumping with Bitcoin here, which is absolutely fantastic. But, you know, it's also not in any ranges that we can really do anything about right now. So, you know, I think for the most part, these coins are just kind of, you know, working themselves to levels where we can do something about them. They're not there yet. So, you know, I think for the most part, it's just a case of kind of waiting to see what Bitcoin continues to do from here. And then, you know, take advantage of the market accordingly. So there you go, ladies and gents. Really hope you've enjoyed. I can't speak. Really hope you've enjoyed this video. You know what to do if you have. Smash up those likes, subscribe, hit the bell, do all that good stuff. We'll be here every time, you know, an interesting market update, an interesting market move happens. So, you know, if you're interested in catching some of that content, then definitely make sure that you're staying tuned to this YouTube channel. And yeah, I think that's it's pretty much a good, well-balanced video from there. So we'll see you all in the next one. Cheers.